Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. Man, I've got one of my favorite guitar players. We're with Neal Casal. Most currently well known for, I guess, being the guitar player in the Chris Robinson Brotherhood, but he's also with Cats Around the Sun. He's got a tremendous solo career as well. But if you aren't familiar with Neal's playing, man, this guy is really like a hidden gem. He's does not play any wrong notes, and trust me, he plays a shit ton of them. He's a really talented player. His use of effects and sounds and just his ability to create moods is really great. And I was fortunate to see Neal, and we'll talk about it. Let me make a quick announcement. First, I just wanted to thank Muddy Dutton, Mark Muddy Dutton, for connecting us, and also to remind you that if you want to watch this, you can now watch these on YouTube and listen to it on podcast as well. And Jimmy Page, Santana, Jeff Beck, and Joe Walsh, I want you guys on my show, so I'm putting that out there. Someone's going to get us connected. All right, Neal Casal. Neal's, as a solo artist, he's released 12 albums, and then dig this, he started his career releasing 6 albums in 5 years. That's like 1970s shit, man. You don't hear that. Seriously, right? I mean, you don't, that's unheard of, man. You are a machine, a work ethic machine. He spent years touring in support of his solo records while working with other artists, including James Iha, Robert Randolph, Duncan Sheik, Tift Merritt, Willie Nelson, Tift Wegmore, and others. In 2003, Neal teamed up with his longtime pals Jeff Hill and Dan Fidel to form Hazy Malaise, very good blues rock soul band that released 3 albums. If you don't know them, check them out. Again, it's called Hazy Malaise, M-A-L-A-Z-E. In 2007, Neal was tapped by Ryan Adams to replace lead guitarist J.P. Bowerstock in Ryan Adams and the Cardinals. He joined Adams on the road for tours and albums over the next 4 years, playing lead guitar and vocals on 4 albums as well. Unfortunately, the band broke up when bassist Chris Spacewolf Feinstein passed. Neal was shortly afterwards contacted by former Black Crowes frontman Chris Robinson and invited to team up with Chris and fellow Crowes keyboardist Adam McDougall as the lead guitarist for a new project, the Chris Robinson Brotherhood. With a roster filled out by that same Mark Muddy Dutton on bass and George Sluppick on drums, the band since released, it says 112 albums. I'm going to assume I made a mistake. It's 12 albums. You haven't released 112 albums, right?
We haven't released 12 albums either, but
a lot of music.
Yeah.
Again, if you haven't seen Chris Robinson Brotherhood, or aren't familiar with their music, I would encourage you to check them out. They're a really, really amazing psychedelic blues rock funk jam band. I saw you guys, I was telling you, out in St. Pete. It was probably a 200 to 250 seat club. Everybody was standing. It was like being in someone's, like you guys invited us to your living room. These guys come out, there's like incense all over the place. Rugs and like nice things for you guys to, it was just like being in someone's, I don't even think you guys had shoes on. Is that?
Yeah, it was probably very hot that night, I'm guessing.
Oh, St. Pete. Yeah, it's always hot. But it was like literally like these guys said, hey, come over to our house and listen to us jam. And what a show, man. I went with my son. It was mind blowing. Actually, I should have worn my CRB t-shirt. Neal's also teamed up with alt country singer-songwriter Todd Snider and Widespread Panic's bassist Dave Schools to form Hardworking Americans, and that band has released 3 albums. Other projects Neal is involved with, either as a band member or a sideman, include Circles Around the Sun, which we'll talk about today, the Skiffle Players, and am I going to say this right? Gospel Beach?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. And man, you are such an asset, man, to like any band with that work ethic of yours and your playing skills, man. I gotta believe, like, if you're a breath of fresh air when people, and I'm not like kissing your ass or blowing smoke, but I mean, you know, your work ethic is so good. Your playing is great, man. You're like, you know, boom.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the compliment. That's it's amazing to hear you go down that list of things I've done. It's hard to believe myself, really.
It's incredible. I mean, this is unheard of. I've interviewed close to 600 players, man. So it's not like I don't have a decent frame of reference. This is incredible, man. I mean, and your work ethic is, I want to talk about that. You grew up in Jersey, moved to California for a short while, and then moved back. But apparently it really, California made a big impression on you, and you always wanted to go back out there. How did that all happen? And when did you finally move back out, and what prompted that?
Well, before I lived in California in the 90s, I recorded in LA a lot. There was a producer that I worked with all the time. His name is Jim Scott. If you look up his his discography, it's just it's pretty staggering. He worked on Tom Petty records, and he produces Tedeschi Trucks Band now, and it's a pretty insane list of accomplishments that Jim has amassed. But at that time, I was recording with Jim a lot. So I would come out here to California quite a bit, but I finally moved here in 2000, at the end of 2000. And then I lived here for 3 or 4 years, and then went back to New York while I played with Ryan Adams. And then I came back here again 10 years ago in 2009.
What made you come? What made you leave?
Well, what made me come?
What made you leave California?
Oh, well, I went back to the East Coast to make a solo record of mine called No Wish to Reminisce. There was a producer there on the East Coast that I wanted to work with, and while I was there making that record, I ran into Ryan in New York, who asked me to become a part of the Cardinals. So I just stayed in New York for a few years while that band was working. And then when they disbanded, I came back to California because I always wanted to live here.
Yeah. Were you living in the city, or were you living like in Brooklyn?
I lived in Manhattan, but the last place that I lived was in Brooklyn, before I came back out to California.
You probably got the last breath of the dinosaur being able to live in Manhattan, man.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I mean, I lived there in the 90s too, for like on and off. And yes, I did. I was there for the very last of it, really, or the last of the, bohemians being able to live in Manhattan, for some kind of affordable, life, which is absolutely gone now. So.
It's really weird because I'm from there, and we go back not every year, but pretty close to every year. And my kids have been there, my wife, and it's weird to sit in like the Village somewhere.
It is
the most expensive place on earth, and there's nothing but like NYU students walking around, and then they're going and they're shopping in these like stores on Bleecker Street that used to be like used record stores, and now it's like they sell T-shirts for $400, and they're packed with these kids, and I'm like, how does that happen? I don't get. I'm like, wow, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's strange how the city has changed. Like my parents are New Yorkers, so growing up in New Jersey, I was in the city a lot. I remember it in the 70s, as you do. Yeah, and the 80s when we started, going to concerts at Madison Square Garden and like wandering around the East Village when it was really quite a dangerous place. But amazing too, because of how vibrant it was. There was so much going on there, and you could just feel like how much creativity was going on, like amidst the, crime and debauchery. I mean, it really was a wild place. And that continued into the 90s. And then towards the end of the 90s, it started to change. And now it's just like, it's a nice place to shop and, and eat. But that kind of, I mean, it's still amazing. The city always will be because it's New York, and there's always an energy about it. Yeah, there is, totally. And there's like incredible things going on there now. Of course, it's just different than we remember. It's probably better, but it's weird. I was just there. I was in New Jersey visiting my mom, and I was driving into the city, and I was coming down like towards the Holland Tunnel, and I don't know if you know it, but like in between like 280 and where you get into the Holland Tunnel, it was just these like old industrial areas, like swampy marshland areas that were just like early 20th century remnants, for as long as I can remember. And now they're building a new bridge across one of those marshes there, and they're putting apartment buildings up, and like that little section right before the Holland Tunnel is getting really nice now. And it just dawned on me that the face of the 21st century is now starting to show itself, like 20 years in. I mean, it takes a little while for a new decade or a new century to actually show its personality, and you can really see it in New York. I think New York is like a good example of where things are headed. Where that is, I don't know, but it's definitely moving away from where it was, and what we remember is gone, so it's kind of it's a weird thing to see. Or
we could look at option B. It's just like we're just like two old men that always have this conversation, everybody when they're this age, about what it used to be like, and then like my kids.
That's sure, sure. No, that's true. That's absolutely true. But I mean,
know.
Yeah, no. I mean, of course, as you age, you just see it, no matter like what generation you are, But really, the last 20 years, like the way just the way the internet and the digital like age has changed the entire face of the planet. I think that's something kind of like unprecedented,
No, I agree with you 100%, but I agree with you also about New York 100% as well. It's different, very different.
It is, yeah.
How did you first? Oh, quick one question I had in my mind: if you hung around the East Village in the '80s, man, you probably know Chan, Kinchla, and the Blues Traveler. Those guys.
I don't know them.
Really?
No, I don't. I mean, I used to go to the Wetlands in the early '90s, and I played there, but I don't know. I didn't. I was just a Jersey kid. I didn't really know. I didn't know those early the jam scene people at that time. Not really. It was later that I started to know some people on that scene, but I don't know the Blues Traveler. I got to play with John Popper once. He appears on a Hardworking American song on our first record, and he came in and played, and we actually did like a little guitar harmonica, conversation, but I don't know him or that crew.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How'd you first get started in the music business, and what would you say your first quote big break was, whatever you define that as?
Well, I've never had a big break, I've just had small ones, I was just a kid playing guitar in rock bands in the 80s in New Jersey, and I met a guy named Gary Waldman, and he's still my best friend and manager today. This is this is over 30 years ago, and he worked in a music store, and he knew people, and he was starting to work for a record label, but he knew, it's kind of a long story, but he knew this guy Rick Medlock, who
Ricky Medlock.
Yeah, that's right.
From Blackfoot?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I'll cut the story, but through Gary, I actually got a gig playing for, a later version of Blackfoot. So Ricky was the only original member, but so I played guitar. I moved, he lived in Michigan, near Detroit at the time. And I knew all the Blackfoot songs because I was a big fan. And I got a gig with Ricky at the end of '88, and I moved away. I had just graduated high school, really, and I moved away to join the circus, and that's what I did. And I played with Rick for a few years, and he was my mentor for touring and the road and recording lots of things. We got along great. We wrote songs together, and we're still friends. But that was my first sort of break, or it was a way to break out of where I lived, because suburban New Jersey in the late '80s, it was pretty bleak for me because I didn't go to college, and I didn't really have, it didn't seem like I had other opportunities. So I joined Blackfoot and I got out on the road and we toured all over, we toured the South, deep South and all over the Midwest and Florida a lot. Went to Europe with him and learned a lot. And then, eventually like moved on to other things. But yeah, Ricky was my hero,
That's a really good gig as a first gig, man.
Well, that the band at that time was definitely in a down period. I mean, Blackfoot had been pretty big for a while, and this was like the other side of like success. I was still playing clubs and had an audience, but he was struggling for sure. And of course later joined Skinner, and look at him now, it's amazing. But yeah, Blackfoot were one of the great rock bands. They don't make bands or people like that anymore. No. So I was really honored to be around Ricky at that time and learned a lot from him. And yeah, it was pretty rough and tumble, honestly.
Oh, I'm sure.
But, yeah, it was. But
well, you went from sleeping in your mom and dad, or your mom's house, I guess, in the safety of, and then you're out in the wild with these like crazy rednecks. It was definitely
pretty wild for sure. But I learned the ropes, I guess. And that was the first big break, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I appreciate that you said I've never had a big break. I've had a series of little ones, because I think that's how most people's lives work.
Yeah.
There's the odd, not just in music, but in business and everything. I've functioned as a consultant for the last 21 years. So I've talked to loads of people in business, and now way more people in music. Everybody, I think there's a weird perception out there, like there's a pixie dust or something, or you drink a potion or something happens and your life changes. But I think for most of us, it's just like a series of, linear bumps. So, you put your head down and, smile and work hard, and then, you get these linear bumps along the way.
Yeah. I mean, I always wanted the pixie dust life, I really did. I think I still do somewhere in my fantasy brain, but it didn't, and it does happen that way for certain people, I play with Chris Robinson, and it wasn't for nothing. I mean, the guy was talented and they were a great band, but like the Black Crowes had that. I mean, I've heard his story, from being around him, and like they had that kind of thing, I remember, Chris has said to me, like, Neal, what were the chances? Right. we were just another band. Like, what were the chances of us getting that successful? So like he kind of went through that, meteoric rise and all that, but no, it didn't work out that way for me. So yeah, it's just been like kind of small things along the way, and then they add up to a story like the one you read back, the one that you read down at the beginning of this, which is like, it's not, I wasn't even thinking that way. I've just been doing things,
Yeah.
But yes, no big breaks here, but I've certainly gotten to play with a lot of really, really amazing people. That's for sure. And do great things.
Okay. Let's go back to, you released your first 6 solo records in 5 years, man. So my question is, how the hell did you do that? That's really intense. And from what I read, the circumstances were way less than ideal with respect to the whole record label situation.
Yeah, well, my first record, Fade Away Diamond Time, that was on a major label. It was Zoo, BMG, like it was always about getting signed back then,
Yes.
Yeah, you probably remember it. Like kids, I don't think it's like a different world now, but it was always about getting signed. Now
it's about getting Facebook likes.
Yeah, right. Instagram followers,
YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, but back then it was like all about getting signed, getting a label. That was the. Are you there?
Yeah, I just lost your video for some reason.
Sorry, it's because someone called me. Yeah. So I finally got signed and had a record deal for a very short time, and made my first record with Jim Scott in this beautiful mansion out here in California. It was this incredible experience. But I got dropped very quickly because the record didn't do well, and I wasn't what the label was looking for or whatever. And I just decided at that point to keep going no matter what. You know, I had a lot of songs. I was very inspired. I was very driven, and I just kept going. I found labels to work with and people who believed in me, thankfully. You know, there was a label in Europe called Glitter House Records. They believed in me. There was a little label where I lived called Buy or Die Records. You know, they took a chance on my, they took a chance on my like second record and got me started. And then there was a label later in France called Fargo. And the guy there believed in me so much and stuck with me for years, you know? So I was lucky to, have these people who believed in me. And I had a really incredible desire to do it. I really was I was obsessed with it, honestly. And that whole, the idea of making all those records in quick succession like that, I was really inspired by a guy named Hal Gelb, and he was in a band called Giant Sand. I mean, he's still around, but I was really into Giant Sand, and I was really into Hal's thing, like, and because he was always releasing records, you know, and it seemed like he just recorded what he wrote and felt all the time and just put it out there without being too precious about it. And I thought that was cool. And it was a model for me for a long time. I slowed down later and got more meticulous with my records, which I needed to do. But for like 5 or 6 years there, I just, I was young and I wanted to get music out there. So I did.
Let me ask you a question about that. I want to ask you a question about that. You had this guy, Hal Gelb, as sort of like your role model, but you had to have a lot of drive inside there.
Oh, I did. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know how at that time. It was just an idea, just a model. But yes, I was very driven. I was obsessed with learning to write songs and make records. And I was just into it. It's all I could ever think about. There was nothing else on my mind.
If you could answer this, why? What was behind that for you?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't really know. I just, I got into music at an early age, and it grabbed me. And it just didn't let go. So I feel like I was in the grips of something, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Your last solo record was Sweet in the Distance. That was 2012. Are you done with solo releases, or do you think there'll be another one in the future?
No, I'd like to make another one. I have some songs, you know, I definitely have songs built up, and I have a couple friends who are pushing me to make another record for sure. You know, Dave Schools is one of them. He's like, come on, you have to make a record. And my friend Brent Rademacher, who I played with in the Beachwood Sparks, and you know, he's always championing me to make another solo album. So I think it'll happen. It'll happen at some point. Yeah.
What were the two biggest things you took, the 2 or 3 biggest takeaways from you as a solo artist that you learned, either business-wise or even personally, about yourself?
Well, that was a very driven time for me, and it was a strong period. You know, I taught myself to play and sing, and I taught myself how to play in front of people, and it's not like I didn't have help from others, but I don't know. I got a lot out of it. It was just like a lot of my strengths sort of came from that time period. I mean, business-wise, I don't know, but I mean, musically, I built my foundation then, and I still rely on it today.
Yeah.
You know, as far as how to play guitar, sing, create songs, arrange things, make a cohesive sounding record, you know, how to finish records, like from the writing process all the way down to the artwork and releasing them and stuff. You know, that was the time where I learned all that.
I'm thinking Casal Records coming up soon, man.
I don't know. I don't know if being a label
no
person is in the cards for me. But.
Yeah, that's probably not a good business. Hey, whatever happened to Hazy Malays? You guys that was a really cool band.
Yeah, Hazy Malays was a great band. That was the story of three friends coming together and making rock music. I'd always wanted to make a certain kind of rock and roll music. I had never been able to really do it. I didn't with the correct authority or feel. I was working towards it when I was younger, but I could never really get it right. And when Dan and myself and Jeff Hill came together, we just found this chemistry, and we were able to play music, a certain kind of music with some legitimacy, that didn't come when I was younger. And it was just such a great time period. It was rock and roll, but it was kind of R&B stuff and blues in the right kind of way. And we made 3 records that I'm really proud of, particularly the last one. I'm really happy with, and we were a very good playing band. We played very well together.
Yeah.
And there's some of those moments that we put down that it was another sort of moment in time. Like, I don't know if I could get that back, but those few years where we were hanging out together all the time and listening to records and recording constantly and touring too, we were just so, we were another very driven time in a different way than my solo music was.
Yeah. Great band. I really liked them.
Well, and Jeff Hill, the bass player from Hazy Malays, plays in the Chris Robinson Brotherhood. So I got him into the band, and Dan Fadell, drummer, incredible, just long-standing friendships,
That's cool. You've mentioned that a lot, like I think a lot of it appears anyway, a lot of the value that you've gotten, value is the wrong word, a lot of the meaning that you've gotten out of your musical experience is tied to a lot of these relationships that you've got to make. That's what it seems like, which is really
it's always, I think it's always that way, that's what music is all about. It's just about bringing people together and friends and, scenes and things like that. That's what it's all been about for me. And I'm still friends with most of the people that I worked with over the years in those different, in those different scenes or scenarios or eras. I could go down a long list of musicians who, play with other people now that are notable. It's just getting to know people through, for me, it's decades now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2008, you released a book of photographs called Ryan Adams and the Cardinals, A View of Other Windows. What prompted you to do that, and when did you get into photography?
It was released in 2010, actually. But
sorry about that.
Well, it's okay. It's just the band was still active in 2008. So, I always loved photography from the time I was a kid. Exile on Main Street, the images in that record really had a big impact on me. When I first got that album, I saw those Robert Frank photos, and they were so mystical to me. It was just this like view into these worlds that I didn't understand, and I just wanted to be there, So that kind of like black and white sort of street photography style, kind of rough edge thing, always stuck with me. And then, but I didn't take up photography until much later in my life. And then a girl that I was going out with, later married, she was
you're very casual. You're very matter of fact the way you said that. Girl I was going out with and later married.
Well, we're not married. We're not married anymore.
Okay.
But she was a makeup artist and like really prominent in like the fashion business, and but she had this incredible eye and knew all about photography and could see things that I couldn't, and she taught me all about it. And I learned so much from her, and she gave me my first camera, and that kind of got me started. And then it just, it kept going through the years. And I just thought, well, I'm touring all the time and I'm seeing things that, you know, other people don't. So I might as well document this. So I just started documenting where I was going. And there were a few photographers that meant a lot to me. Robert Frank being the first, and Gary Winogrand was another one.
Great.
Yeah, he's really my favorite. My photographs aren't anything like his, but Gary Winogrand inspired me in the way that how Gelb did. Similarly, you know, if you know anything about Winogrand, he just shot constantly. When he died, he left like 1,200 rolls of undeveloped film. So he just was always working, always creating. So I tried to do, again, as a model for photography, I don't shoot nearly that much, but it was just like an inspiring way to get started with it. And then I just would take photos of the musicians that I was playing with. And then when I joined Ryan's band, I just documented the whole thing. And another story that I'll skip all the details, but I met someone who worked at a publishing company, and they were a fan of the band and Ryan, and they saw my photographs and said, "Hey, do you want to make a book of this?"
Oh, cool.
Out of this. Yeah. And it was an absolute dream come true, because it was a very prominent, well-respected publishing company. And yeah, I'd secretly harbored this dream of having a photography book one day, but never really voiced it. And it just sort of came from the inside and happened. It was a very nice thing to do, you know?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
What do you shoot with now?
Well, you know, I shoot with a Fuji digital camera now, but I also have a Leica M6, and that was kind of my main camera back then, and a Nikon FM2, just simple, very simple cameras, you know. But Fujis are beautiful digital cameras. I love them, actually.
I've got to get a new one, and I'm looking at, because they look so freaking cool, man. They're so retro looking, especially because like I do street kind of stuff, like sort of like along the lines of what's that other woman that left millions of literally like boxes, you know, like something like 500,000 photographs, and it was all street photography from New York City. Oh God, I'm sorry, I'm going to brain fart, but it's a similar story to what you just mentioned. Really like just street kind of stuff. I love that stuff, and the Fujis look great.
Yeah, Fujis are really great for that. The Fuji X series cameras are really good for that. I highly recommend them.
Thanks. Circles Around the Sun, or Cats. It's another cool project you're involved with, and how you guys started is a really good story. And I was hoping you could share that story of how the band was formed, and then maybe if you want to talk about the new EP you got coming out with Joe Russo. Sure.
Yeah, Circles Around the Sun started as just a project with no name. In 2015, there were, if you remember, there were 5 Grateful Dead shows. They were called Fare Thee Well. And it was supposed to be like the last time the Grateful Dead ever played with, you know, all of the remaining original members. Trey was the guitar player, you know, who took Jerry's role. And they did these huge shows. 2 were in California and 3 were in Chicago. They were done at these massive stadiums. And I was asked to make an instrumental soundtrack for those shows, music that would be played during the set breaks, and also before the show started, when people were just walking in. And there were big screens on each side of the stage, you know, that had like psychedelic footage and archival Grateful Dead footage, you know, just like imagery to keep people entertained while the band wasn't playing. And they wanted like an instrumental soundtrack, like music, kind of walk-in set break music to go along with this. And I was asked to do it. So I I asked Adam McDougall, keyboard player in Chris Robinson Brotherhood, bass player Dan Horn, and a drummer named Mark Levy, my friends, to help me do this. So we went into a studio for 2 days, made up all this music on the spot.
This is on the fly?
Yeah, we never rehearsed. We didn't write anything.
Wow.
We didn't prepare anything. We didn't have time. It was done very quickly. So we just, I had some guidelines, it had to be music that sounded sort of like the Dead, but not cover music, but it had to be kind of familiar, so it wouldn't be, so you could feel connected.
Yeah.
Right. So,
makes sense.
So we did this music and just turned it in and hoped for the best and didn't think anything more about it, really. The people at the shows kind of freaked out over it. Everybody was wondering what it was, and it led to Rhino, who releases the Grateful Dead catalog. They approached us and said, hey, you want to release this? We said, sure. So we had to come up with a band name. So I was talking to Annabelle Garcia, Jerry's daughter, who's kind of a friend of mine. And she came up with the name Circles Around the Sun. That was great. Great piece of connective tissue there, And yeah, the music got released. We made a video and people liked it. And then we made a second record and we started touring, and we're making a third record this week, actually. We're writing, as soon as I, leave you here, I'm going to be writing music with my bandmates to get started. Yeah.
What a cool story. How did you were you like a big Deadhead and like known in those circles or something? Like it's not random that you got called to do this.
No, it's not random. I'm a Deadhead for sure, but I'm not like a famous Deadhead, and I definitely am newer to the scene. Ryan Adams and Phil Lesh were friends for a while when I was in the group, and I met Phil then, and he sat in with us. We played the show at the Hollywood Bowl, and he came and played with us, and then I sat in with him, his band, one night on my 40th birthday, actually, in New York. He asked me to come and play. That was beautiful.
That's a pretty cool birthday, man.
Yeah, it was. It was amazing.
How was your birthday?
Yeah. And then when I joined the Chris Robinson Brotherhood, we started that band, and Phil and Chris had been friends for a long time. So being a California band, we started. We just became a part of the, Phil's kind of scene, and and then Phil opened Terrapin Crossroads, his club up in San Rafael. And I was around at a time when they needed musicians there all the time. They were getting this place off the ground, a venue, restaurant. And Phil called me. I became a part of this, I call it the early Terrapin era,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got to play with Phil a lot for, 5 or 6 years, and through him just got introduced to so many incredible musicians and got to play with all these amazing people. It's a long list, and it was kind of, it was sort of through that. And I met Justin Kreutzmann, who, Bill Kreutzmann's son. He's a filmmaker. He and I became friends. And Justin, I scored this Bob Weir film called The Other One. It's a documentary. So I made some music for that, and it went well. And then Justin did the Fairly Well shows, and he asked me to make the music for those. And that's how it worked out. So it was all through, being around California, really the CRB, playing with Phil all the time in Terrapin. Got to know Bob a little bit, and just, became a part of the scene by accident. I was never looking to be any kind of Grateful Dead person, really. I mean, I was a fan, always have been. I saw them play. I saw the Jerry band play. But it's not like I went on tour with the band. I didn't see hundreds of shows. I knew the music, but I never learned to play it when I was younger because I was working on my own music.
Sure.
But later in life, somehow it came around that I got to be around Phil, really, and that was just a life-changing, mind-blowing experience to learn from him and be a part of his scene. It was really, really an amazing thing. So that's how it worked out.
Really cool. But you also pretty much earned your spot when you scored that movie. And then basically they needed a movie score, only it was a live. You know, you were scoring a live documentary.
That's correct. Actually,
that's great.
Yeah. Justin and I had a good rapport, and he trusted me to, make the right music for that, and I did, and it turned into a band.
And dude, 2 days? That is fucking monstrous, man. Seriously, that is like.
Yeah, it was 2 days. It was. Well,
really good work ethic.
To the stuff, it's pretty loose for sure, but it's good. It had a spirit to it. Definitely.
Wait a minute. As opposed to most of the Grateful Dead stuff that's not loose.
Well, yeah, but they were kind of the architects of loose,
Yeah,
it's a different kind of thing. But anyway, yeah, it worked out really well.
Yeah, that's great, man.
It's 4 years later, and we're making our third record, so it's like a nice, really nice thing to happen.
Much of your playing is blues based. Was that your thing early on when you first started playing?
Yeah, it was actually. It still is. Yeah, it's always there for me. It always has been from day one. The Rolling Stones were my band, they will always be my number one band. And they have that blues foundation to their music. And there's something about that feeling that caught me at a very young age and will always remain with me. And blues is kind of, I don't know, kind of has a bad name sometimes now, or like just a bad image because it can be so cheesy, or I don't know, like the surface of it, the way it looks to people or the way some people present it has become kind of a bummer, but when you get into the real stuff, there's nothing like that music at all. And it's always moved me. And as a guitar player, it's right there at the foundation of my playing.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, you can hear it,
It's like nothing else.
Yeah, there's just like all those players that I still try to learn, Otis Rush things, or Freddie King, or Robert Nighthawk. I could go down the list. It's just like, and the country blues actually was really even more impactful to me. When I was a kid, I got into the Arhoolie label and those recordings, that guy, George Mitchell, and it's just, Fred McDowell and those like kind of North Mississippi, musicians were really, really big for me, and Chicago stuff too, and all of it really. But yeah, blues. I like blues.
Neal, what were some of the low points or maybe the darker periods in life that you've had to get through, and how'd you get through them? Are you laughing because there's so many to choose from? Or are you laughing because some people, I have the very odd interview that says, I really haven't had any. And there was one guy who said it, but I believed him. You could tell when someone's unscathed, right? Just in the vibe. So I didn't question it. But sometimes I'm so odd. I'm like, come on, man. If you don't want to talk about them, that's cool, but don't say you haven't had them.
Yeah, I'd love to trade places with that guy.
Yeah, me and you both.
Well, I can tell you that surfing is one thing that kind of saved me in a very, very bad time in my life. And that's like the main thing, actually. That surfing kind of saved my life at one point, I feel. And that's beautiful. And, friends and music always helps pull you out too,
So like you were going through a bad period or whatever, and you spent your time surfing and it kind of got you through it?
I learned to surf. Yeah, I got into it. I got really obsessed with surfing, actually. Like as obsessed with that as I was with songwriting earlier. And I don't know, the whole feeling of surfing and like what it can do for you. And the ocean. I don't know. It sounds kind of corny, but it really.
No, it doesn't sound corny at all.
Well, it really changed my life at one point, and it pulled me out of a bad place and into a really great place.
Good, man.
Yeah. And well, surfing's nice too because it connects really well with music and photography, the other things I love, So like surfing kind of it mixes in with that, and it can inspire music and inspire photos and inspire you in every way. So it became this kind of like integrated thing, the beginning of the CRB. My surf life was really vibrant then. I don't know, it informed a lot of the music, really, my part of the music for the CRB. And also that album, Sweet in the Distance, too. That was like very, very, very surf inspired, It doesn't sound like surf music. It's not. I don't make surf music, but
right.
you can hear, I think you can feel it in there. And even in some circles around the sun, too. It's kind of there. So that's one thing.
Have you ever heard these guys out in California, the Mermen?
Oh yeah, they're from Santa Cruz. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know them, but I have people. I know people who do.
Yeah, they're like Jim Thomas, I think is the guy's name. Really good. It's kind of like combines blues, psychedelic, and surf. It's really good stuff if you like that stuff. Anything like if you had to go back, and you didn't answer that last question, but I want to give you a pass. Anything, if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, is there anything you would have told yourself that you think would have made your life easier, assuming you were willing to listen?
Yeah, I would have told myself to have more confidence in myself, Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of advice I would give to my younger self, that's for sure. It's a pretty long list at this point, but here we are,
Well, thanks for sharing that, man.
Sure.
I want to talk about gear for a few minutes. You have so many cool guitars. You played that night, just like you kept pulling out one Gibson after another, and then like it's a couple of other guitars that were all like mostly humbuckers, if I remember. What's your go-to guitar right now, and has that changed over time? And what other 2 or 3 guitars are in the backup to that?
My go-to guitar for 5 or 6 years has been a guitar made by a guy named Scott Walker. And he lives in Santa Cruz and works there. He makes custom guitars. And he made me a guitar 5 or 6 years ago that I played, I don't know, close to 1,000 shows on. And I just got a new Walker guitar as well. He makes beautiful instruments, incredible luthier. So that's been the main thing. And there's another.
Is that the brown one?
Yeah.
It's like not a Strat, but it's like that ilk of shape, maybe.
Sort of. It kind of looks like a Paul Reed Smith, which is like not my thing at all, but it looks kind of like that, but it doesn't feel or sound anything like a PRS. I mean, no offense to PRS players. They're cool. It's just not it's not my guitar, but yeah, this Walkers are beautiful guitars, really. So and it has 2 humbuckers and a single coil in the middle, and you can split the coils. It has all of these kind of bells and whistles that I used to frown upon. I was always just like a straight Fender Gibson person and didn't like any kind of nonsense or frills on guitars. But kind of through my experience with Grateful Dead people and learning that music and learning about their gear, I expanded my thinking a bit, or a lot actually, and got into coil tapping and different pickups and all of these different choices, and actually it's opened up my world a lot. I really like it now and know how to operate that stuff a little bit, and so the Walker's been a big thing. I just got a guitar, well, it's still on loan, but there's a guy named Chris Swope, SWOPE, He's in Minnesota, and he makes really beautiful guitars too. And I have one of his that's a very simple guitar, but it sounds gorgeous. So I've been playing that for a couple months and really enjoying it too. And, you know, beyond that, I have an SG, the 60s SG that's been with me forever, and some Strats, and, you know, a B-Bender Telly that I really love, and, you know, a White Falcon. I have a number of things that are, you know, necessary tools.
Yeah. Any interesting stories about how you acquired any of your guitars?
Geez, probably. Well, you know, I can tell you about a Strat that I love. It's a white Stratocaster that I have. I haven't played it live very much, but the first electric guitar that I ever owned, that I ever got, was a 1975 Strat.
Oh my God! Wow.
Well, you know, 3-bolt bullet neck mid-70s Strat. Not really. They were not the greatest guitars in the world. You know, they seem cool now because it seems like anything 70s is cool. But
yeah.
But as you know, those guitars really weren't that amazing. And the one that I had was certainly not a great guitar, but it had a pretty decent neck on it. And through the years in high school, you know, in wood shop, I tore it all apart and repainted it. And, you know, I was into metal for a while, so I put a, you know, Floyd Rose in there and changed the, you know, did all the heavy metal silly moves that kids did then, you know. And then, so the guitar just flew into pieces over time and disappeared. I never knew what happened to it. I just thought it was gone after I dismantled it so many times. And, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I was looking through a box in my storage, and I came across at the bottom of a box the neck to that guitar.
Oh, wow.
Just the neck was the only thing left. So I thought, wow, I really should have a guitar made around this. So I had a guy named Seth Lee Jones, an amazing luthier, an amazing guitar player too, who lives in Tulsa. I would recommend anyone to check him out, check his work out on many levels. And so he built me a Strat around that neck. And I don't know what I was expecting, but it turns out it's a really great sounding guitar. The body is made out of a piece of Douglas fir from from an old barn in Tulsa. It's a very light guitar, and it sounds really beautiful. It kind of has its own, I don't know, it has its own personality. And so it's nice that I get to play the Strat. You know, it's the first show I ever played was on that neck. So that's kind of an interesting story.
Yeah, that's cool. You're great with effects, man. I mean, you are like one of the masters to me. You know, you're really able to. Well, I mean, a lot of guys just use effects, but you actually create an atmosphere with them, and I think there's a big difference. You know, I think you create something that is different had the effects not been there, as opposed to, oh, let me hit this effects pedal and just play. And it is different. So I was curious, especially like when you do a lot of spacey stuff. It was funny. I was watching this video, you were doing something, and Chris was even like he looked like he got a kick out of it. It was so cool what you did. What are some of for all the guitar nerds listening, what are some of your favorite effects? And what's your favorite fuzz pedal?
My favorite fuzz pedal, there's a couple of them. Well, one of them, it's made by Greer. They're a company in Athens, Georgia. What's it called? The Super Hornet. It's a beautiful sounding fuzz, and it has it's an octave fuzz. You can make it an octave fuzz. You can make it a regular fuzz, or there's a momentary switch where you can tap the fuzz on and off, so you can do it in time. Or sorry, not the fuzz, the octave. So it's like
octave higher, octave lower.
Octave higher, yeah. So you can tap it on and off, and that's
wow.
It's really cool, and it's just a good sounding fuzz. I love the Earthquaker Devices terminal fuzz. I think that's a really fantastic, I don't know, if I had to have one fuzz pedal, I'd probably choose that. There's so many good ones out there. Man, oh man, got me thinking now. I don't have it all in my head. Those are two that spring to mind, but there's a lot of them. Barefoot makes some beautiful fuzz pedals. Yeah, it's a long list for me, but I'll stop there.
Oh, that's great, man. What are some of the other just top 2 or 3 effects that you like? You don't even have to name the pedal if you don't want. I mean, just
no,
in general.
No. I'd love to name the pedal.
Okay, cool.
Well, Chase Bliss makes beautiful pedals. The Tonal Recall is a delay of theirs that I really love. I mean, all their pedals. Their phaser, I forget the name of it. So good. The Chase Bliss Tonal Recall is a big one for me. The Cattle and Bread Echo Rec, that is another delay that's been big for me for a really long time. It's like kind of a big part of my sound, or whatever you want to call it. Let's see. Barefoot makes what's it called? The Honey Beast. That's an overdrive that's fantastic. And they also make their pale green compressor by Barefoot. I would recommend to anyone. Yeah,
you got a pretty big pedal board when you play.
It's really big. Yeah, it's kind of silly, but it's very.
Dude, you sound great. I mean, if I had that, it would be silly. But know.
Yeah, it's very simple, really, and it's just the what do you call it? The true bypass looper. That's the thing that gives it a lot of its size. But the looper is very. I would recommend anyone who has more than like 4 or 5 pedals. I think everyone should kind of put stuff on a looper, because it really saves your signal and it really helps your sound. It's been good for me. But yeah, my pedal board's really big, but I'm not clever with pedals. I don't program stuff. I'm not really a genius with pedals per se. I don't know how to. I just have a lot of this same thing, like I don't know, as far as gains, I just have different like levels of sound that I like. So I have lots of pedals that do different versions of the same thing, but I'm not that knowledgeable about them. I'm not like the Edge or someone who has all of these. I don't have all these timed things going on. You know what I mean?
But that's not your playing either.
What's that?
That's not really your playing.
It's not. No, my playing it's really quite simple, and my use of pedals is quite simple. And I don't want it to ever feel like there's a bunch of pedal, wizardry going on. It should just be kind of transparent and not something you think about. I mean, I feel that way about guitar in general. Even when I solo or something, I don't want it to feel like I'm playing guitar at you. It's just music and something conversational when it's at its best, and just like something engaging where it doesn't, I don't know, you don't even hear, you don't want to like talk about guitars afterwards. You just want to feel that you heard some, I don't know, something memorable,
You've used the word conversational 2-3 times, and I would say that's a great description of your playing, man, because you're always, when you're part of the conversation, you have something important to say, and when you're not, it's fine. But man, I'll tell you, and I'm again, I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but you really know how to place notes so beautifully, man. And
thanks. Yeah, that's all it is, because I'm not a shredder, I can't play very fast. I'm slowing down all the time. I was slow when I was really young, and it's only getting slower now. But yeah, it's just all about like timing. Really, is the big thing, and pocket and tone. Obviously, that word, and just like how to speak through the instrument and like have a voice that sounds like your own. So I don't really. It's not about guitar. It's just like this overall idea, or it's just you pull back and just hear music. It can be any instrument, I would prefer the guitar to sound like a horn more than anything else, So yeah, conversational is the idea. It's the direction, and just to be playful, and like, I don't know, run the gamut of emotions.
Man, you do it. Speaking of, you mentioned something about conversation. Tell me your top 3 Desert Island discs. For now, for this minute, I could ask you in an hour, it'd be something different.
Well, I've said this way too many times, it's so boring, but Exile on Main Street's number 1, just because it is, because of, what it did for me, like as a kid. Other than that, I don't know, man. Well, I guess I'll just stick with the, with the things that impacted me most when I was a kid. The other one would be, it's a hard record to find, but it was on the Arhoolie label. It was called Mississippi Delta Blues Volume 1. It was a compilation. It's all on Spotify and all that now. It's called the George Mitchell Collection.
Okay.
But it was a record called Mississippi Delta Blues Volume 1, and I bought it when I was like 12 years old. And there was a Fred McDowell tune on it, Ferry Lewis.
Can you spell really Arhoolie?
Arhoolie, yeah, it's ARHOOLIE.
Okay, thanks.
So that record changed my life, and I don't know, man. Other than that, there's so many records I'm into. I don't even know where to start. I really don't. A third one, I don't know, probably like Highway to Hell or something, Or I don't know. There's so many. There's actually, there's a record. There's a record called it's called Ashra Blackouts.
ASHRA.
Yeah, and the record is called Blackouts, and it's one of my favorite guitar records I've ever heard, actually.
Who's Ashra?
Oh, it was a guy named Manuel Gottsching. He was a German guy, 70s dude, great guitar player, made some cool records.
Dude, you've turned me on some pretty good music here, this conversation. Best decision you've ever made?
Best decision I've ever made. Musically, or what do you mean?
Whatever you like. Musically, personally, whatever you like.
I don't know. That's a hard one. Best decision I ever made. It
is a tough question because, like, we always know the worst decision we ever made real easily.
Yeah. Well, it's heavy, but I guess it just came to my mind. So I guess the best decision I ever made was to sit with my dad while he was passing away. I was the only person in the room, and I sat with him and through the whole thing instead of leaving.
Yeah, man, that is heavy. Thank you.
That was a good decision for sure. I was happy I did that.
Thank you.
Anyway, on to lighter things.
Thank you, man. That's pretty cool. Man, I'm going to ask you some tough questions now. All right.
Sure.
What do you like most about yourself?
I don't know. Well, through the music thing, I've been able to like connect a lot of people, particularly like in the CRB years, that band, we created a lot of friendships for people, and I definitely had a lot to do with that. So I'm kind of proud of my part in bringing people together,
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met a few guys. Do you happen to know a guy named Yogi Lanich?
I don't know.
He's a guitar player. I think he told me the same thing. He's really happy. He likes connecting people.
Yeah. I like that the most.
Something about yourself, Neal, that people might be surprised to hear or find a little odd.
I don't know. I don't think there's that much like about me that would surprise anyone. It's not. I don't think I'm Well, I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know if there's anything that extraordinary. I mean, maybe people that know me from like, you know, the jam scene or something might be surprised to know that I love, you know, Iron Maiden or Slayer or something. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know what can be surprising. I don't think there's that many surprising things about me.
Do you follow a band called Sepultura?
No, they were later.
They're later. Oh, you're into the 80s metal.
Yeah, I got out by the late 80s. I was out of metal.
You know what, man? I like Iron Maiden, but I really liked them better. Those first 2 records with Paul Di'Anno.
Yeah, well, yeah, me too, man.
They were more bluesy oriented. I felt.
Yeah, they were more punk, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those records too, and I love Dickinson as well. I like it all.
Who's had the biggest influence on you, both musically and personally?
Well, personally, you know, it was my father for sure. Yeah, he had the biggest impact on me because he encouraged me to do what I wanted, you know, and to like follow dreams and stuff like that, you know. So that was cool.
That is cool. I was going to ask you earlier when you left at 18 to go tour with Blackfoot and Ricky Medlock, how your parents felt about that.
My mom was afraid. My dad was elated. I think he was just like, go for it, you know?
Yeah, that's really cool.
My mom was just scared. And looking back, she should have been really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she definitely had good reason to be. Musically, the biggest... There's a couple people. There was a guy in New Jersey named Davis James, who, you know, is like the greatest guitar player that no one's ever heard. And he mentored me when I was 17, 18 years old, and he had the huge impact. Jim Scott, the guy who
produced,
yeah, he was another one. And my friend Gary Waldman too, just because of all the records and the music that he turned me on to, and like the philosophy and direction, you know. I remember when I was like 19 or 20, Gary and I were standing at a Neil Young concert in a field in New Jersey. It was on the Freedom Tour, you know, and he was playing alone. And he, you know, it was like when Rockin' in the Free World was a new song, and Neil was playing, and Gary turned to me and he said, that's what you need to be doing when you're 40. And, you know, it didn't end up exactly like that, but the idea took hold. And
I think it did, man. When you were 40, you were on stage with Phil Lesh.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know,
literally,
I didn't become Neil Young or anything close to it. But you know, the idea to like follow it came from that moment, you know. And so yeah, like Davis James, Jim Scott, my friend Gary, I don't know, there's others too, you know. Actually, Chris Robinson was a huge deal to me, like when they first came out. I don't know, he was so inspiring, and he was like a real crusader for cool music and like kind of, I don't know, cool things. And he was inspiring to me at that time. I don't know, I have a lot of mentors, and they continue to this day, you know. I'm meeting people younger than me now that are my mentors.
Oh, that's cool. Are you good with getting help? Like asking for help? Like, are you comfortable like asking for help or getting mentored and stuff like that?
Well, as far as music goes?
Yeah, anything. Music, life. I mean, you know, just are you comfortable with getting help? Let me.
Well, I need so much of it.
We all do. No, but some people are like, I'm uncomfortable. I'm just now at 55 starting to get comfortable with asking for help and accepting help.
Well, personally, I don't know. Probably not. I'm not so good at it. But with music, and I have no problem at all. No, I like it. I prefer it. I want people to tell me what to play, or, you know, like, hey, try this. I don't really have much. There's not much in the way there. I mean, if I can do it, you know, if I'm playing for someone else and they're like, no, you know, don't do this, try this. Like, if it's right and the reason behind what they're saying is sound, I'll do it all day long. You know, I'll cut down from 50 notes to 1 if that's the right thing.
Yeah.
So no problem. I actually invite it. It's the only reason to, do anything. I don't really have much other than that. I don't have an agenda that's so strong that it's all about me. I just want to be in bands and be in things that are where everyone's on the same page. I'd be the guy in James Brown's band that played like dun 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 dun, or like, you know what I mean, music like that. If the greater purpose is that strong, I would happily play one note for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
really. Yeah, as long as if everyone's reasons are right, and I'll be that guy. So, and actually, a lot of what I do has been to compensate, for things not being right sometimes. So, yes, I can accept help in art and music for sure. In my personal life, well, that's a whole other conversation, and I think I can sometimes, but that's a big thing there. So let's keep talking about guitars.
It's funny, I had James Brown's music director on here. He was his guitarist and music director for the last 13 years of his life, and he said to me, Craig, you'd be amazed, I would stand there for a whole song sometimes and go, did it sure. Exactly what you just said. And I mean, I can't imagine the amount of patience that guy, and commitment to that, to do that is not easy by a long shot.
Yeah, I could do it, no problem.
Yeah,
I'd love to be that person. I've never been in a position or a band where I could be.
Yeah,
I would like to be that. Yeah,
like, to be a rhythm player instead of a lead player.
No problem.
Yeah,
I am a rhythm player. That's all I am really. My solos they're just rhythm actually. I would rather be a rhythm player than a soloist actually. Yeah, for sure. I don't think my soloing is that.
Well, dude, I wouldn't, for whatever it's worth, I certainly wouldn't rather you be a rhythm player. I love your soloing.
Well, thanks. But
awesome, man.
Well, it's
very moving, man. You connect. I mean, I connect with what you're putting out there anyway, man. It's like
no. Thank you. No, I like to solo for sure, but it's all rhythm, really. So yeah.
All right, a couple of easy questions. What's your favorite New York City food you miss?
Well, there was a pizza place on the corner of Avenue A. It's probably still there, and not St. Mark's, maybe. I always think about that place, just like
nothing like the pizza there, man.
I just wish it was right outside my house. Yeah.
Me too. Outside of photography, you have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Surfing, yeah.
Oh, cool. Very good. Yes.
Surfing, that's what I do.
Last question, man. What's been the biggest change in your personality, Neal, over the last, let's say, 10 years? And how much of that has been intentional and how much has just been a natural process from aging?
How's it changed? Well, I've been humbled on every level over the past few years. So, yeah, I don't know. You just slow down a little bit and chill the hell out, I guess that's happening.
Listen, thank you for everything. I want to tell people a couple of things you got going on. I really appreciate you I know you're on the quiet side and this is pushing you out of your bounds, and I really appreciate that and very much.
No worries.
Really kind of you. All right. So a couple of cool things Neal has going on. First of all, man, if you've never listened to Neal's playing, it's Neal Casal, C-A-S-A-L. Listen to anything from Chris Robinson Brotherhood. Listen to Hazy Malays. Great. If you like blues, man, great, like proper old school funk blues. It's, man, great stuff. Neal's on Instagram, and he's also not on Tinder, but on Tumblr with his photography. So you can check him out on there. Also, Circles Around the Sun meets Joe Russo. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. Joe Russo is an amazing, phenomenal drummer that everyone knows about. He's in Joe Russo's Almost Dead, and he's played with Further and a million other people, and is a great songwriter and singer on his own. He collaborated with Circles Around the Sun. He just came and played drums with us. So he and Mark, our drummer, they double drummed. We made up a bunch of songs, 4 songs in a couple days, a few months back. it all turned out so well that we're releasing it. So it's called Circles Around the Sun meets Joe Russo. And check out our Circles Around the Sun official Instagram page for details about that. If you want to buy it and check it out.
And I hope you'll be coming out with something.
Yeah, so, one of these days. Yeah, we're talking about re-releasing some of my early solo records, and hopefully I can make another solo album, within the next, year or something. And I'm producing some records coming up too. One by a great songwriter named Kenny Roby, incredible songwriter from North Carolina. I produced a record earlier this year by a guy named Zephaniah O'Hora.
Oh yeah, why do I know that guy?
Well, he has a record out already. That's
played with a lot of people that I've interviewed, I think.
Well, he's a songwriter, real country, in the classic tradition, amazing. So I produced a record of his that's going to come out next year called Listening to the Music. And I'm also producing a record a little later in the year, well, just in a couple months, by a guitar player named John Lee Shannon, who plays guitar for Zephaniah. And this guy John Lee Shannon, he has an Instagram. He's a phenomenal young guitar player who can play so many styles with so much authority. He plays incredible B-bender telly, like on par with, to say Clarence White, I mean, it's a big deal, but you know what I mean? He's really, really good, and he plays so many styles. He's just a brilliant guitar player, so I look forward to working with him. And John
Lee Shannon.
Yeah, and Kenny Roby too, great songwriter who's been around for a while, who's kind of one of, America's best songwriters that not enough people know about.
Well, dude, you're one of America's best guitarists that not enough people know about, as far as I'm concerned, man. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I know you don't accept compliments well, so.
No, it's all right. I appreciate it.
And then Chris Robinson Band, Servants of the Sun.
Chris Robinson Brotherhood,
Servants of the
Sun. Yeah, that record was released in July, so that's out there too. Really good. Yeah, some of our best songs.
Your next touring is with Circles Around the Sun?
We're playing at Lock-In coming up soon, and I'm touring with Todd Snider as well. I'm going to do some more playing with Todd.
That's awesome. Soon. Very cool. Hang on there. Let me wrap up. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks.
Everybody, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. I really like you to check out Neal Casal. His playing, he's just a very moving, very emotional player, super talented guy, whether it's with Chris Robinson Brotherhood, check out Hazy Malays, or he's got all these other projects, Circles Around the Sun, and he produced John Lee Shannon and Kenny Roby. I hope I didn't mess those names up.
Well, I'm going to produce those guys. The records aren't done yet. But.
The records aren't done yet. He's going to leave his mark on them, though, and we hope you get a solo album out. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Neal, thank you.
Thank you.